and then I followed those with some size 8 beads on this side, and then I changed it up and got real funky over here and did some different stitching. Even used some crystals and different things in there, and filled all of this in. And again, you know, on another tutorial, I'll probably do some patterns and talk about those a little bit more, but I wanted to cover the basics today. Okay, so once you have your bead beaded, and I want to show you, this is a completely different style here. This is one where I actually went up on the sides of the bead, but this has been beaded to the point where I'm ready to put it on the backing. Okay, so once you've finished, you can go ahead and knot your thread on the back side. In fact, let me demonstrate that real quick, what you can do. Let's say I was finished with this project. I'm just going to end it on the back of the interfacing, so I'll come down, and then what I do is come in and just pick up a little bit of that interfacing in toward the middle of the bead, and you'll probably be poking through a little bit of the glue as well. But I'll pick up a little bit of that, and whoops, I picked up so little I ripped right through it. Sometimes I don't know my own strength. Let's try this again. Get in there. I'll try and be a little bit more gentle this time. But you want to come in, and I'm just going to do, oh, it's because I have a knot in my thread. That would be part of the problem. Typically when you get a knot, it's actually just your threads are wound around each other. There we go. Okay, so I want to come in, and as I work that loop down, I'm just going to put my needle right through it, and that'll create a little knot. And you don't have to get crazy about your knots or worry about the security of those too much, because what we're going to do, and then I would just come in and trim this little tail off and just snip that right there. But what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our E6000, and I'm going to trim off around the edge here with my scissors that I can't find right now. There they are. Grab a pair of scissors, snip off my little tail so you can see that. And then what I would do is I would come in and I would trim really close to those beads. So on this one right here, you'll see I'm just going to come in and I'm going to trim right around. Now, some people cut from the back side. I do my work pretty close. What you don't want to do is you don't want to cut any of the threads that you've worked on the back, because if you cut one of the threads, guess what's going to happen? All your beads are going to fall all over the floor, and that is never fun. So I always cut my interfacing from the front side. Okay, that's all trimmed off. So the next step that you're going to do is you're going to take your E6000 and you're going to glue this onto your backing. Now, there's a lot of different options for backing. A lot of people use ultra suede. I've used ultra suede before. This puzzle bracelet was actually, I used ultra suede with that. My preferred backing is leather. I love leather. I love the way it feels. I love the way it looks. I think it gives a real professional finished look to the back. You can get leather that has a sheen to it. You can get some of the softer leathers. Grab this piece of gray leather here. I think this piece is just absolutely beautiful. And the cool thing about leather is on the other side is suede. So if you wanted, you know, that soft suede side to be on the outside, you could always glue onto the leather side. So what we would do at this point is you're going to take the bead that you just cut out, and you're going to glue that with the E6000 right onto your backing, whether you use fabric or whether you use leather. Now, micro suede is woven in such a way that when you cut it, the edges won't ravel. Obviously, you know, leather's not going to ravel. You don't want to use any kind of fabric that will unravel, because that'll create problems when you are stitching the edge. But you can get a little bit creative with this. My biggest complaint about ultra suede is sometimes the E6000 will, I wouldn't call it bleed through, but it will leave a coloring on the back side. and kind of make the fabric shiny, and I don't really care for that. Also, you know, when you're talking about jewelry and fabric and cleanability, you know, I'm not a germaphobe, but I like something that I can wipe off, and that's why I really do like the leather. So, okay, so once you have your beadwork glued down and that has dried, I have some little beads here that I've done that I'm working on a project for. You're going to come in and you're going to trim around the edge, kind of like you did with the, so I can get this on camera, just like I did with the interfacing. So you're going to just trim right around the edge. And now you can kind of see why those little threads that you've cut off the back, why they don't matter so much. I used to be real fussy, and I would tuck in all the thread ends and make sure, you know, they were in there. And then I realized one day it didn't make a difference. So I lightened up a little bit. So you can see here's a couple that I've already pre-cut out. And so now we're ready to put the bead edge on those. So you can see if you can see on here on the camera. There's my leather layer. You can see a little bit of the interfacing poking out, and then you can see the beads right there. Now I want to talk about one other thing real quick that I didn't address earlier that I want to talk about now. When you're using interfacing instead of a colored fabric, white isn't always the color of choice that you want for your background, because you know, if there's any kind of gappage between the beads, that white's going to show through. So my little trick is these lovely Sharpies. I love Sharpies for a lot of different projects, but you can use a Sharpie to color the interfacing. Here is a bead some beadwork that I've already done, and I don't know if you'll be able to see this on camera real well. Let me see if I can get it in an angle where you can see. Can you see a little bit of that interfacing poking out? Well, this brown in here, I actually embroidered with embroidery thread. So there's some thread in there. And I know when I do my edge work, that white's going to pop out and poke through. So what I'm going to do is come in here with my Sharpie, and I'm just going to just kiss that edge a little bit with the end of my Sharpie, and that's going to hide that interfacing. Now you can do this at any time in your embroidery work. There are times when, as I'm embroidering, if I'm going to do a larger bead, and you know, maybe it's a red bead, and you know, some red beading work, and that white's really poking through the back, I'll grab a red Sharpie and I'll just color right on the interfacing, and that helps kind of create the illusion that there are no gaps in between your beadwork. So I'm just coming around and coloring all those edges, and I think I'm already around. So there we go. I got rid of all that white pretty well, and now we're ready to bead on the edge. Okay, so to bead on the edge, get my needle out here, you can do a couple of different things. There are some all different beading stitches, I guess, is the word I'm looking for. I'm trying to find the beads I want to use on the edge of this, and I'm not seeing them right now, so I'm just going to grab these right here and show you what you can do on the edge. Now when I start the thread on here, we're back to, you know, what's going to be the best technique for this particular project. And there's two different things you can do. You can either just leave a tail and worry about knotting and burying it at the end, or you can tie a knot to start with. So I want to show you the technique where you tie a knot to start with. We're going to do just like what we did on the back. We're going to come in, and I probably should be using white thread so you can see this. Let me do that. I've got some crystal right here. So we're going to do a knot just like we did at the beginning of our embroidery. I'm going to come through here twice. Put my little knot. Now on this one, I'm going to trim my tail down. Okay, there's my knot right there. I'm just going to trim my tail to about right there. I don't want a very long tail, because what I'm going to do is let me show you on this one. I'm going to come in here and I'm putting